want so much to open your eyes, 'cause I need you to look into mine.
So, choices. This is a big deal because you hear a lot about in terms of treatment and in recovery. You don't hear so much about it in recovery because people are of the mind that if all you do is remain abstinent from drugs and alcohol, you're a raging success, which is true, absolutely true. Given the alternative, which is to be, in active illness all the time versus abstinent, there's no question. But there's more. There's absolutely more. So choices, and obviously when you're talking about treatment, the choices that you make that send you down the road. I mean, at 13 years old, I was walking down a country road, and two friends of mine asked me if I wanted to take LSD, and I had always said no for months and months and months, but that day I just said yes. And so when I said yes that day, that was a choice, and that changed my life forever. If I had made a different choice, my life would have been completely different. Now, I don't have an opinion about what's better or what's worse. That's the facts. And I made, once I made that choice dictated a bunch of other choices that were also not terribly productive and healthy for me. In recovery, we have the same issues. I got clean and sober when I was 30. I had always wanted to be an actor. I was educated as a lawyer. I had a master's certification from Harvard Medical School in clinical psychology. I had enormous opportunity, an enormous life to step back into, which I was incredibly lucky to have. I could have done anything, but I decided to be an actor. Now, again, no good, bad here, but at 30 years old, with a kid, with one child on the way, married, with all sorts of opportunity, to become an actor at that age, probably not the best choice in the world in terms of opportunity. I remember I was terribly excited about it, and I was working out all sorts of stuff, but you have to remember a 30-year-old who gets clean and sober for the first time after 17 years of active addiction is really a 14-year-old in a lot of ways. So I'm making choices that are kind of like, my dad was an actor. I'm kind of working that stuff out, and there's a lot going on. And nobody's giving me any advice about this, really. I mean, you're not going to get, there aren't a lot of people around to give you sort of guidance on this kind of stuff. And I was at this party, and I'd come to LA to be an actor, and I was terribly excited. And I was there, and there was a very powerful woman in Hollywood, and she looked at me. She knew who I was, where I came from. A bunch of my relatives were there, and she looked at me. She says, "So what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm an actor." And she looked at me, and she started to laugh, and she says, "Well, why don't you just go park the cars?" And I was horrified and insulted. But on some level, what she was saying is, you've made a choice that basically the majority of people that make that choice end up parking cars at parties like this. So maybe you ought to consider the choice. Now, I didn't see it that way at the time, and everything worked out perfectly fine. I was lucky. But these are some of the issues that people deal with in terms of, what do I do work-wise? Who do I get into relationships with? What do I do? Where do I live? A lot of people live, they don't know how to live. I mean, I was talking, recently about Frank Gehry. The space you live in is enormously important in terms of how you feel about yourself and how you feel every day when waking up. I mean, I used to live in, the apartments I got were like bunkers, that you would go into dark place. That's not going to work in recovery. But in order to make a different choice, you have to know what the opportunities are. You have to see. You have to get guidance. It takes thought, and it takes some planning to begin to make different choices.